And on here we have the three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. And then the three secondary colors, violet, orange, and then green. And then in between each of these colors is what are called the tertiary colors, red-violet, red-orange, yellow-orange, yellow-green, and so on and so forth. And so here is our makeshift color wheel. And the first thing that we are going to learn about is what the different color schemes are. The first color scheme is complementary colors, and that is colors that are on opposite sides of the wheel. So we have yellow and violet, blue and orange, and then red and green. You can also use the tertiary colors for this, but for purposes of simplicity, it would be easier if you just select two of the primary and secondary colors. The second type of color scheme is analogous, and analogous color schemes are colors that are next to each other on the wheel. So you have orange, yellow, and yellow-green, or you could do red-orange, red, red-violet, violet, and blue-violet. It could be any amount of colors from 3 to 5 to 7 you could choose, but for the purposes of this assignment, you will be able to select 3 to 5 colors. The third type of color scheme is triadic, and like it sounds, triadic has 3 colors in it, and it is 3 colors that are of equal distance from each other on the wheel. So we have the typical primary, red, blue, and yellow, or you have the secondary, which is orange, violet, and green. And you can use those 3, or you could also do 3 different colors that are also, so long as they are opposite on the wheel, like these 3 as well. The split complementary color scheme is the final scheme that you will be selecting from, and the split complementary is also 3 colors, but they go from one color, like red, and then you select 2 colors that are right next to its complement. So a triadic, that would be based off, or a split complementary, sorry, that would be based off of red, would be red, blue-green, and yellow-green. A split complementary based off of yellow would be yellow, red-violet, and blue-violet. And so that is the basics of the different color schemes. Just to review, we have complementary colors, which are on opposite sides of the wheel, analogous colors, which are next to each other on the wheel, the triadic color scheme, which is in 3s, so long as it forms an equal triangle on the wheel, and then split complementary, which takes 1 color and then the 2 colors next to its complement. So with that, now that you know the different colors and the color schemes, you will be selecting a color scheme that interests you, and then you will be creating a color chart. So in order to do that, you will have a new piece of paper that will be slightly bigger than this, but since I'm showing it to you, we'll be using this size. And you'll select a color scheme. So, for example, if I wanted to do a complementary color scheme, then I could select red and green, orange and blue, or violet and yellow. But since I'm a Bears fan, I think I'm going to go with orange and blue, which I think are 2 very good colors together. So the first thing you're going to do with this color chart is you are going to start with 1 color. So I'll start with orange, and you are going to go from that 1 color to white. And so you'll start by creating 3 circles or squares or blotches, however you want to make your color chart of the color. And then you're going to take the white on the opposite side and then make 3 more circles. So you have 3 and 3, and then you will have 1 in the center. That will be equal to both. And then what you're going to do next is you're going to go from orange to white, or whatever color you select first, to white. And so to do that, you can take the orange and start from the center and move into the white, adding a little less orange to each circle of color so that it's fairly even in the transitions. And if I wanted to make it a little lighter, I could add some more white to it. And then same thing on the other side, only I would add white to the orange. And again, try and keep them fairly even in the transitions so that you can get a good idea of all the possible colors that you could get with using these colors. So that's a pretty good example of what it would look like. And then after doing the first color, you're going to do the second color, or third color, depending on which color scheme you choose. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with blue on one side, make 3 of the blue, and 3 of the white, 1 in the center. That is both. And then we move on. Same thing as we did for the first one, adding just a little bit more of the color, or less of the color depending on which direction you are going, to each pool. You can also blend in the top color just for the purposes to make it look like the rest. I want to make this one a little lighter, so add a little more white. Make this one a little more darker, so add a little more blue. And it looks like this was a little bit orange, and so I'll just add a little more white to that side. And that's another fairly even strip. So I have my red, my orange, and my blue. And then after I do those 2 colors, since there's only 2 colors in a complementary color scheme, I then am going to go from one color to the next. So to do this, it's the same thing as going from one color to white, only we're going from one color to another. So you start with 3 of each. Just like that. And then put 1 in the center. It's easier to add color to a light color than to lighten a dark color. And so I'm going to have the lighter of the 2 colors in the center. And then what I'm going to do is start blending in the colors. And then you would be a little bit surprised with what you might come up with for each of these colors, because complementary colors, when you mix them together, most people think just make brown or gray, which they do to an extent, But there's also transitionary colors before you reach that specific color. And it's good to figure out what those colors are so you know which colors you want to use for your final project. As you can see here, it's a little bit green instead of just straight up brown. And so you can get different colors depending on what you mix. So here's my complementary color scheme chart. And then something extra that you get to do that I'm not going to show here is you're going to take each of these different steps of colors and also lighten them, make them go to white, because then you will have a very broad amount of colors you can choose from, and you will know exactly what colors you can get from each of these schemes. One other thing that I suggest you do not do for now is avoid using black, because with soft pastels, if you use black, it can be very dramatic, and so we will hold off using black until very final details. So for our color charts, you don't have to worry about using black. And another thing that you can also notice with certain colors, especially if they're complementary, if you want to make something duller, you could either add gray to the color or you could add its complement. And if you wanted to make something more vibrant, the same thing. You would take away the complement or take away the gray. So once you have your color chart, the next step you're going to do is you're going to take these colors and you're going to just do a little experimenting. You're going to make a couple different shapes using these color schemes and figure out how to add shadows, highlights, and different things like that. So the first thing you could do is just use one straight up color. So I'm going to make a sphere, starting with the orange. And I also noticed when I added blue to the orange, it got a little bit darker. And so for my shadow, again, instead of adding black, I'm going to add the blue. And then for my highlight, I'm going to add the white. And then we'll see how that transitions. And then we can also set these objects in place because that's what we learned in our previous lesson. And so I can create a little bit of a shadow just using the complementary colors, and shadows typically have very soft edges. So I can blend that in a lot more. And then I might make another object using the blue. If I wanted to make a cylinder, I can start using straight up blue. And then again, even though the orange is lighter, we can see what it does. Just shows shadow. And then use the white once more to show the highlight. Blend it all in. And here's my cylinder. And then, once again, set it in place, give a little bit of a shadow. And again, the shadows don't always have a definite form, so you can keep them pretty vague, so long as it sets your object in space. And then one other thing we could do is, since we experimented with finding different colors using these colors, I think I really liked that green, so I'm going to try and repeat that. And I'm going to start working on using other objects as well, since we're going to be using a still life. So I'm going to try and create the shape of this mug. So I'm going to set that down right there so that you can see it. Turn my page this way so you can also see kind of a little bit of how I'm drawing this. I liked that green color, like I said, so I'm going to start with the orange, since it's always easier to add more darkness to a light color. And I'm going to just quickly draw out the basic shapes that I see. See the top circle and the bottom. And the handle comes out right about here. And I see the bottom right there. I'm going to fill this in with the orange first. Then I'm going to add some of the blue. But not too much, because I also liked that lighter green color instead of the darker one. I'm going to add that in just enough to get the color that I want. Blend that all in. And I already have some highlights and shadows, it looks like, in this mug as I was trying to get the form in there. So what I can do then is do the same thing that we've always done to get the highlights. Add some white where I see the light. And then add some more blue to make it a little darker, to get the darkest shadows in there. Blend that all in. And then add a little bit of shadow once more. To set this mug in place. So now I'll take that mug away and turn this around. And then that's what my little mug looks like. So there's a little bit of form in there. As you can see, it's not a whole lot of detail yet since I'm still just experimenting with color. And then one other thing that you can do as you're experimenting, flip this over, is just experiment with blending greater amounts of color instead of just little circles or little shapes. I can do lines like this. Start with my orange, get a little lighter as I go across, and take my blue on this side and do the same thing. Start darker and slowly add less. Blend that all in right the way it is for now, and then we can go back and add the color once more. So here's the orange. The orange, we can go fairly far since it's a light color, and you need a little bit more of it to make the difference. Over to the blue, over to the orange, and then take the blue and do the same thing. We'll start darker, and as we get farther into the orange, add a little less, a little less. You can experiment with going back and forth in your blending, what that looks like. You can maybe add a highlight in here, going straight across the center. See what that does. And then I can see what a highlight would look like for the entire spectrum that I've made. Like that. And you can do a couple different things like that as well. You can go from orange to white, a little less, go across, like that. And you can also go from blue to white. And do the same thing. Very simple. Beginner things, just to get you started, to get your ideas flowing, to figure out what colors you want to use and how those colors work. And so tomorrow, what I want you to do in class is you will select your own color scheme, and then you will begin making your own color charts. Just so you have a little better idea of the different color schemes, I'm going to provide you a couple more examples just to show you what the other schemes could be. Since we did complementary colors, first I showed you how to use the colors in a creative way to get multiple colors. In this case, I used orange and blue. Before the lesson, I also did a little experimenting with red and green. As you can see with the red and green, in between there are a couple violet colors that are in there as well. And so the more colors you experiment, the more colors you will also find. And so with that, I'm just going to show you a few more color schemes and examples so that you have a better idea of what colors you might want to use. And so the first color scheme I'm going to show you with this video is the triadic. And that is, just as a review, 3 colors that form an equal triangle on the wheel. So we have yellow, red, and blue, which are the primary colors, or violet, orange, and green, which form the other equilateral triangle. For this example, I'm going to use the primary colors. And something about the primary colors, as you already know, is you can make pretty much any color that you want. And so for the purposes of this, we're going to stick to the 3 colors and stay fairly close to each color, so that way you still have a specific scheme that you're working with. And so with these 3 colors, I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the complementary colors, only I'm not going to do quite as many, just so it's a little faster. And showing video, I'm just going to do 3 pools of each. So we have white on the very end, and then the color on the side. So we have the red, blue, and then the yellow. And then if you choose this scheme, you will be going farther than I am right now. You'll be doing the 7 pools, just like I showed you with the complementary colors. So we have that as our first step. And then the second step is to go from one color to the next. And so something that you can do with a color scheme that has 3 colors in it is you can try each way because you want to know which colors you can get. So I'm going to start first by going from red to blue. And since red is the lighter color, I'll put red down first and then add the blue to the red. As you can see, we have the violet, which is in the center. And the thing about this practice is you will be doing the 7 circles or 7 spaces of color the same way that I did the complementary colors, and so you will see each and every step from red to blue, and then you can select one of those colors if you like them more. Or you could go from yellow to red, with orange being in the center. And again, you will see all 7 steps from the yellow to the red, and so therefore you could select one of those colors if you like those more. And then the last one you would do is go from yellow to blue. Of course, with green then being in the center. So here's what we have so far with those different color schemes. And then again, something that you could do as an option for this, since there's 3 colors instead of 2, is you can select 2 to 3 colors from each strip that you have done. And so for every 7 pools that you do, you can select 2 to 3 colors that you like more from each of those, and then you can lighten those then with the white as well, just like with the complementary color scheme. And then again, something that you can do is experiment with how different colors work. And so if I wanted to make a sphere using the red, I can put blue as my shadow. And then another thing that's nice about a triadic color scheme is you can use all 3 colors and then avoid using white as much as possible unless you need an absolute highlight. And so my highlight in this case would be the yellow, and my shadow would be the blue. Something like that. And then I would form my shadow to set it into place once again. And again, there are many different things that you can do with this. You can go from blue to yellow. See all the transitionary colors in there. Find the greens that you maybe like more and use those. Or you could use a color closer to the blue or closer to the yellow as well. And then you can do something like this for all 3 colors as well. This is an example of the triadic. The next example is analogous. And analogous is all colors that are connected on the color wheel. And for this, I want you to select 3 to 5 colors depending on what you would like to do. For this example, I'm just going to do 3. And the analogous scheme that I want to do is I'm going to go from red to orange. So the 3 colors would be then red, red, orange, and orange, of course. And again, Do the same thing for this. The only difference is, since we don't actually have a red-orange pastel, what you would have to do is create that red-orange using what you have. And then do that for everything as well. And then this again would be how you experiment, figure out the colors that you like, and then also create the different shapes and forms and different strips of color as well.